The crash in the mountains. The ship was shaking. Hard. Inside, a young alien girl named Valari held onto her seat with trembling hands. The lights flickered. Sparks flew from a broken panel. Outside the window, she saw clouds spinning. Then, impact. The ship crashed into a snowy mountain range with a loud roar. Metal tore apart. People screamed. And then, silence. Valari's eyes opened slowly. Her ears were ringing. She looked around. The front half of the ship was gone. Smoke rose into the gray sky. Cold air rushed inside through the cracks. The alien diplomats she had traveled with were injured, some unconscious, some groaning in pain. She tried to stand, but her leg was hurt. A sharp piece of metal had cut through her uniform. Blood oozed from the wound. Her breathing became fast and shallow. "Help. Someone," she whispered. No one answered. The cold wind howled. Snow started falling. They were stuck, high in the mountains of a strange planet. The air was thin. The storm was coming. Then came the howls. Not the wind this time. Something else. Wild creatures, hungry ones. Valari's eyes widened. She had heard stories about this place. The planet was called Oros Prime, but humans had another name for it. Death's Teeth. Now she understood why. Two large beasts appeared from the trees. Their bodies were covered in black fur. Their eyes glowed orange. They had 6 legs and long, sharp tails. One of them let out a roar and ran toward the crash site. Valari screamed. The other aliens panicked. One of them fired a small blaster. It missed. The beast leaped forward. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed in the mountains. The creature stopped mid-run and dropped to the ground, dead. A second later, the other beast fell too. Valari turned her head. A figure stood at the tree line. Tall, covered in snow and dirt, holding a smoking rifle. It was a human. He walked slowly toward the wreckage, rifle slung over his shoulder. His clothes were torn and his right arm hung at an odd angle, clearly broken. But he didn't seem to care. Valari stared as he reached the group. He looked at the injured aliens. He didn't speak. He just walked up to one alien whose leg was trapped under metal and lifted it with one arm. How was that possible? The alien gasped in pain and surprise, but the man kept working. He moved from person to person, checking wounds, wrapping cloth, building a small fire. Then he stopped. Valari noticed something strange. His broken arm was getting worse. It was twisted badly. He sat down on a rock and took a deep breath. Then with a short grunt, he grabbed his broken arm with his other hand and snapped it back into place. Crack. Valari's mind couldn't process what she saw. The sound echoed in her head. Her vision blurred. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just nodded to himself like it was normal. And that's when Valari fainted. She woke up hours later beside a fire. Her leg was bandaged. A warm cloth was covering her shoulders. The human was sitting nearby, sharpening a piece of metal into a knife. His arm was now wrapped with wood and tied with wire, an improvised brace. He looked up. "You're awake." Valari stared at him, her voice barely a whisper. You broke your arm." "I saw." "Yeah," he replied. "Not the worst break I've had. What kind of creature are you?" He smiled. "Just a man." The flames crackled between them. Valari had trained as a scholar. She had read about humans, violent, unpredictable, dangerous. But this one had saved them. He had walked through snow, killed 2 monsters, and reset his own bones without blinking. She asked, "Why did you help us?" He shrugged. "Didn't feel like watching people die today." That simple answer sent a chill through her body. Not from fear, but from something else, a feeling she couldn't name. Respect, awe. The other aliens still kept their distance. They whispered about him like he was a monster. But Valari looked at him differently now. Maybe he was a monster, or maybe he was something worse, a human. And humans, it seemed, didn't play by the rules of pain, fear, or even survival. They rewrote the rules, and Valari had just met one. Through. Human's pain means nothing. Valari woke up to the sound of metal hitting stone. Clang, clang, clang. The sky above was still dark. The fire had burned low. She turned her head and saw him. The human. He sat alone at the edge of the camp, sharpening a piece of jagged scrap against a rock. Snowflakes landed on his shoulders, but he didn't seem to care. His right arm, the one he had snapped back into place, was bruised and swollen, but he still used it slowly, carefully, like he didn't feel the pain at all. Valari's leg still hurt. She winced as she sat up, but her eyes stayed locked on him. He didn't act like any creature she knew. Most aliens feared pain. Some even shut down completely from small wounds. But this human had reset a bone without a sound, and now he was working like it meant nothing. Was it possible he really felt nothing? She crawled closer, watching from behind a broken panel. The wind howled around them, but the human stayed focused. Every move he made was silent and steady, like he had done this 1,000 times before. Then he spoke, without turning. "You should rest." Valari froze. How did you know I was awake?" He finally turned his head. His face was calm, unreadable. "You've been staring at me for 5 minutes." Valari blinked. "You don't look normal." He chuckled. "Most people don't think I am." She moved closer, this time sitting across the fire from him. "Your arm. It should be in shock. You shouldn't even be moving it." The human shrugged. "Pain is just a signal. Doesn't mean I have to listen." That sentence shook her more than the crash. "Do all humans think like that?" "Not all," he replied. "Some scream, some cry, some quit. And you?" "I move forward. That's all." Valari didn't know how to respond. She was trained in logic, science, and alien diplomacy, but this human didn't fit any theory she had studied. "What's your name?" she asked. "Grant." "Where are you from?" "Earth." She nodded slowly. "Earth, the famous death world. A place where plants could poison you, animals could eat you, and the weather could kill you." Valari had seen reports. Most aliens avoided Earth altogether. Now one of its natives was sitting in front of her like it was no big deal. "You saved us," she said quietly. Grant looked into the fire. "Did what anyone should do?" "No," Valari whispered. "Most would have left. You walked through snow and monsters with a broken arm, just to help strangers." He didn't answer. Valari's gaze fell to the strange knife he had made. She realized it wasn't just metal. It was a tooth, a large fang, maybe from the beast he killed. He had turned a predator's weapon into a tool. That's what humans did, didn't they? They turned pain into power, death into fire, fear into action. Valari reached into her pouch and pulled out a small container. "Here, these are healing leaves. Crush them. They'll ease your pain." Grant took the container, looked at it, then looked at her. "You believe in painkillers?" "Yes, don't humans?" "We believe in grit," he said. "But thanks anyway." He tucked the herbs into his pocket. Valari smiled a little. He had accepted her help. It was a small thing, but it mattered. Just then, a rustling sound echoed from the nearby trees. Grant stood up instantly, every muscle alert. He held his bone knife tight and moved between Valari and the sound. More rustling, then silence. Valari's heart pounded. Was it another beast? Grant didn't move for several seconds. Then, slowly, he relaxed. "It's gone," he said. "How did you know?" "Because it didn't want to fight," he replied. "It saw me and changed its mind." Valari stared at him. The wild animal had sensed danger and run away from a wounded human. What kind of being scares monsters? Valari tries to help the human. Valari had seen warriors. She had watched elite guards train with plasma blades. She had studied military files on alien champions and warlords, but none of them were like him. Grant, the human with a broken arm and A quiet voice had done more in one day than 10 soldiers with full armor. And now, he was coughing. The cold was catching up to him. His skin looked pale. His lips were cracked. But still he kept moving, cutting wood, checking on the injured, building traps to keep the creatures away. Valari couldn't sit and watch anymore. She stood, limping slightly from her leg wound, and picked up the small pouch of alien herbs. She didn't know how humans healed, but she knew how to care. She had to try. The others still avoided Grant. They whispered about him when he wasn't looking. Monster, death worlder, broken inside. But she walked straight toward him. "Grant," she said. He looked up from where he was, tying sticks together. "You need help." "I'm fine." "No, you're not." He sighed and sat back against a rock. His breath came out in white clouds. "You don't need to worry about me. I do," she said. And then she surprised him. Valari sat beside him, pulled out the herbs, and crushed them with a small stone. The scent filled the air, sharp, clean, soothing. She dipped a cloth into the mix and gently reached for his injured arm. He flinched. She paused. "I'm not trying to break you," she said softly. "I'm trying to understand you." Grant slowly let his arm rest in her lap. Valari worked in silence. She wrapped the bruised flesh, careful not to press too hard. His skin was much thicker than hers, rougher, like it had seen too many winters, too many fights. "How did you survive out there?" she asked. "Before you found us." "I didn't plan to," he said. "I was part of a rescue team. We were shot down." "Your ship?" "Gone. Crew? Probably gone too." Valari looked at him. "And you kept going?" "Wasn't done. Yet." That sentence hit her like a pulse. Wasn't done yet. He didn't talk like most people. He didn't complain. He didn't explain his pain. He just kept doing. She tied the last knot on the bandage and sat back. "There," she said. "It's not perfect, but it's better." He tested his arm gently, then gave a small nod. "Thanks." Valari felt a strange warmth inside. Not from the fire, but from that one word. Then something howled in the distance. Grant stood up in a flash, grabbing his bone knife. Valari stood too, heart racing, but this time Grant didn't run toward the sound. He waited. The creature didn't come closer. It stopped, then retreated. Again. Valari whispered, "They fear you." Grant didn't. Harsher. Later that night, Valari couldn't sleep. The stars above were hidden by clouds, but the fire still burned. She looked over and saw Grant sitting alone again, watching the darkness. She walked over. "Why do you do it?" she asked. He didn't look away. "Do what?" "Risk yourself for people you don't know?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, he said, "Because someone once did it for me." Valari sat beside him. "And did you thank them?" "I never got the chance." She looked at him, this broken, brave, tired man, and realized something. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't unfeeling. He just hid it all behind silence and action, because the only way he knew how to care was through sacrifice. Valari stared into the fire, thinking about everything, about the crash, the cold, the monsters, and the human who didn't run. The human isn't normal. The storm had passed, but something colder remained. Not in the air, in their minds. The aliens at the crash site no longer spoke near the human. They looked at him the way prey watches a predator. Quiet, wide-eyed, afraid to move wrong. But Valari watched him differently. She had seen him bleed. She had seen him survive things that should have broken him. And now she wanted answers. That morning, while others gathered snow for water, Valari walked over to where Grant sat fixing a snapped wire from a shattered comm unit. His arm was still stiff, his fingers slow. But he worked like time didn't matter. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Grant nodded without looking up. "Are all humans like you?" He smiled slightly. "You mean terrifying?" Valari sat down. "I mean, you don't act like you feel pain. You fight monsters without blinking. You snap your bones like it's normal. Pain is part of life, he said. I just learned to use it. She frowned. Use it? Grant stopped working. His eyes finally met hers. I was born on Earth. We don't grow up soft. Everything there tries to kill you. Weather, animals, the ground, even the air sometimes. You either learn to take pain, or you die young. Valari listened closely. She had read about Earth before. The official records called it a Class 5 hazard world. Most alien species couldn't even visit Earth without special suits, but Grant had grown up there. What about your people? She asked. Family? Friends? Grant looked away. Gone. Silence fell between them. Valari felt a weight in his voice. He didn't say it with anger or tears, just quiet truth. Like the loss had already been buried deep under layers of scars. To change the subject, she pointed to the long mark running down the side of his neck. What's that from? Grant touched the scar. Got it when I was 12. Fell into a river full of glassfish. They sliced me up pretty bad. 12? He shrugged. Made it out. Swam 2 kilometers, found shelter, stitched myself with a fishing hook. Valari blinked in disbelief. 12. That was an age when alien children still played in light chambers. Not when they sewed their own skin shut in a death river. Grant stood and stretched his shoulder, wincing only slightly. You think I'm strange, he said. I think you're impossible, she replied. Just then, a cry rang out from the trees. One of the aliens, a technician, was screaming. Grant didn't wait. He grabbed a sharpened stick and ran toward the sound. Valari followed, heart pounding. They found the technician on the ground, a small beast clamped onto his arm, fangs dug deep, claws scratching. It looked like a spiny wolf with glowing red veins. Before anyone could move, Grant lunged. He tackled the beast with his full body, even with one arm still healing. The creature snarled and bit him in the side, but Grant didn't stop. He slammed the beast into a tree once, twice, until the body went limp. He stood slowly, covered in blood, breathing hard. Valari rushed to his side. You're hurt. He glanced at the bite, tore off a strip of cloth, and tied it down. I've had worse. You keep saying that, she snapped. But someday it will be worse. He gave her a long look. Then I'll fight harder. Valari wanted to argue, but stopped, because deep down she realized he meant it. This man didn't fear death. He didn't even fear pain. He just kept going. Even when his body said stop, his will said, not yet. The technician stared at him, wide-eyed. You're not normal. Grant turned to walk back. Valari whispered under her breath, watching his bloody steps. No, he's not. Valari faces. Her fear Valari had never held a weapon before, not a real one, not one made of bone and blood. But now she gripped a sharpened branch in both hands, her claws trembling. Her heart thudded like thunder in her chest. Grant was unconscious, and the beasts were coming. Just an hour ago, everything had felt stable, calm even. Grant had built stronger walls around the camp with fallen trees. He had taught Valari how to light a fire without tech. He even smiled once when she made a joke. Then came the third attack. 2 night creatures had slipped through the outer trap, and Grant fought them alone. He killed both, but not without cost. One of them bit deep into his leg. Valari had seen the teeth, curved like hooks, dripping with black venom. Grant limped away from the scene, collapsed beside the fire, and passed out with his knife still in hand. Now he lay still, his face pale, breathing shallow. And the others? The other aliens were hiding behind metal panels, behind crates, behind fear. Valari looked around. No one moved, no one helped. She could feel it. If no one stood up now, they'd all die tonight. She knelt beside Grant. His bandages were soaked. His lips were dry. He had saved her. He had saved all of them. Even when his body was breaking, he fought. Now it was her turn. Valari stood up. The fear in her chest turned into something else. Fire. I need help, she shouted. We need to protect the camp. He can't do it for us this time. No one answered. She shouted louder. You called him a monster. You were afraid of him. But without him, none of us would be alive right now. One alien peeked out from cover. He's not like us. Valari pointed her stick at them. Exactly. That's why he's still standing, and we're still hiding. The silence grew heavier. Valari turned and faced the woods. The snow crackled. Low growls echoed beyond the trees. She gripped her weapon tighter and took a step forward toward the danger. If Grant had taught her anything, it was this. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing to fight while afraid. The beasts appeared, small at first, then larger. Their eyes glowed green in the dark. Valari swallowed hard. She shouted into the night. This camp is protected. Leave now or die. A lie, a bluff, a desperate scream. But the beasts paused. They smelled blood, but they also saw something new, an alien who stood firm, not frozen, a girl with sharp eyes and a sharper voice. Valari didn't wait. She threw the first torch. The flames exploded across the snow, lighting the area. She screamed again and waved her burning stick, running toward the shadows. The beasts backed away, uncertain now. That's when one of the other aliens rose, holding a metal pipe. Then another joined, grabbing a sharp panel. One by one they came, out of hiding. The camp roared to life. Together they drove the creatures back into the trees. Screams, fire, and fury filled the night. By dawn, only silence remained. The beasts were gone. Valari dropped to her knees, shaking. They had survived. They had protected their own, and she had been the first to rise. Later, Valari returned to Grant's side. She wiped the sweat from his brow and checked his wounds. His eyes fluttered open. You're back, he whispered. She smiled, tears in her eyes. You told me once. Pain is just a message. He grinned weakly. Didn't think you were listening. I listened, she said. I remembered everything. He looked at her proud. You're not just a scholar anymore, he said. What am I then? You're something better. Human versus nature. The blizzard didn't ask who was strong. It didn't care who was alien or who was human. It simply came, roaring, freezing, biting, trying to erase everything. Valari stood at the edge of the broken camp, snow stinging her face, watching the white winds swallow the world. The sky had disappeared. The trees were ghosts. The cold was not just cold, it was alive. It crept under skin, into bones, into hope. And behind her, Grant lay dying. His fever had worsened. The infected bite on his leg had turned dark. His breathing was shallow, ragged. Every breath he took sounded like it could be his last. Valari pressed her palm against his forehead. It burned like fire. The others were packing up. The rescue beacon had finally pinged a ship, but it was days away, and they had to move now. Before the blizzard buried them all. He can't travel, one alien said. He'll slow us down. He won't make it, another added. Leave him, or we all die. Valari stood. Her face was calm, but her heart screamed. We're not leaving him. You don't understand, he's just a human. Valari turned sharply. No, he's the reason any of us are still alive. The alien stared at her. No, one moved. No one helped. So Valari did what he would have done. She took action. She grabbed rope from the supply pile, cut apart old cloth to make straps, and broke down metal panels to build a sled. Her hands were raw from the cold. Her arms ached, but she didn't stop. By nightfall, she had strapped Grant's limp body onto the sled, wrapped him in layers of cloth and dried fuel blankets. Then slowly, she pulled the sled into the storm. One step, then another, then another. The snow pushed back. The wind howled. Her lungs burned. But Valari remembered the look in his eyes when he said, You move forward. That's all. So she did. The others followed, ashamed. They had talked about survival. She had chosen it, for all of them. By the second day, Valari's legs were numb. Her arms barely moved. Her vision blurred. She fell to her knees more than once, but every time she got up because Grant had done the same for her. That night they found an old human outpost buried in ice. Its doors were frozen shut, but Valari used Grant's bone knife to pry them open. Inside, the power still worked. She dragged him in and lit the emergency heat, and only then she let herself collapse beside him. The next morning Grant woke. He turned his head and saw the metal walls, the heater, the fire, and Valari, fast asleep, covered in frost, her face beside his. He blinked, confused. "You dragged me," he whispered. Valari opened her eyes slowly. Her lips were cracked. Her hands were blistered. But she smiled. "Someone once said, 'You heal or you die.' I chose for you to heal." Grant laughed, soft and broken. "That sounds like something I'd say." "You did." They both looked around. The storm still howled outside, but inside the warmth grew. Not just from the heater, from something else, from what she had become. She wasn't just the alien girl who had once fainted. Now, she was the one who faced the storm. The return and the legend, they came down from the mountains not as victims but as survivors. The alien rescue ship arrived just after the storm cleared. Bright lights cut through the sky. Rescue workers rushed out with stretchers, heaters, and scanners. They gasped when they saw the condition of the group, frostbitten, bruised, limping. But what shocked them most was him. A half-conscious human wrapped in torn blankets tied to a handmade sled with dried blood on his side and bite marks on his legs. And beside him, a small alien girl, barely able to stand, holding a stick like a weapon. The lead medic asked, "Who dragged him through that?" Valari answered, her voice soft but clear. "I did." The medic blinked. "Why?" She looked at Grant and smiled faintly. "Because he carried all of us when no one else would." Inside the ship, the rescued aliens received medical care, heat, food, rest. But the humans, there was only one, was watched like a legend. The alien crew didn't know what to make of him. "Are you the soldier from the downed Terran patrol?" Grant nodded weakly. "And you, I survived in those mountains alone." He said nothing. Valari stepped forward. "He saved our lives, fought monsters, fought nature, fought through a broken body," another diplomat added. "He snapped his own bones back into place without medicine." The aliens looked horrified. Amazed, one whispered, "Is that true?" Grant opened his eyes and muttered, "Just a sprain." Valari chuckled. "He calls everything a sprain." Back on the alien capital station, word spread fast. Not about the storm, not about the crash, but about the human. The human who didn't fear pain. The human who broke his bones to protect strangers. The human who taught an alien girl to stand when others hid. They called him a savage, a brute, a death worlder, but Valari called him something else. A teacher. Months passed. Valari returned to her homeworld, but she was different now, stronger, not just in body but in will. She trained in wilderness survival, hand-to-hand combat, and emergency medicine. She began teaching others what she learned from the human, how to think with courage, act without panic, and face fear like it's just another mountain to climb. When others asked her why, she always said the same thing: "Because I saw what one human could do, and I want my people to be that brave." And Grant? He returned to Earth. No medals, no celebrations. He said he didn't need them. He had already won something more. One day, he received a message from the stars. A short one. From Valari. "I didn't faint this time. I fought. I won. You'd be proud." He smiled, and for the first time in a long time, he felt warm.